Hey everybody, so I'm going to do the part on leptin now, which is still chapter 5 of the book. It starts with food, but like I said, I was going to do each different hormone, a video on each one because they're lengthy and they're kind of hard to understand. So I'm going to do leptin now. This chapter is so interesting and it completely explains why there's so much diabetes in our society today. So if you know someone that does have diabetes, if you're suffering from diabetes, please watch. And if you don't understand something, please reach out to me because this information explains to you exactly why family history really isn't important when it comes to diabetes. You are in control of managing, eliminating, or creating it. So leptin. All right, leptin is actually an amazing hormone that we have in our bodies. However, with the overcarbsumption that some of us partake in, prevents leptin from working properly. So leptin is a hormone that's found in our fat cells. Okay, it is communicating with our brain. All right, so this is what it does, or this is what it's meant to do. If you're too skinny, leptin tells the brain to eat more and move less. That way the fat is in balance with your body. All right, your body is a pessimistic thing. It thinks that every meal that you have is the last one it's going to get. So it tries to store as much as it can in case, you go into starvation mode. So what it also does, if you're too fat, it's supposed to tell you to eat less and move more. However, with the overcarbsumption, and you may have to go back to the previous video of insulin to fully understand this video. They're kind of intertwined. I'm going to try to recap a little bit in this one so you understand, but if you don't, go back to the insulin one and it may make more sense, by listening to this. So go back to it and then watch this one. All right, so what happens is, or how it gets interfered with communicating with the brain, the leptin that is, back when we talked about insulin and you have the two tanks, right? Your muscle's a tank and then your liver is a tank. Those tanks can fill up, all right? Your muscles, that tank does not dump back into your bloodstream for energy. It stays in the muscle until you burn it off with intense high activity. Working out, a fast-paced jog, lifting weights, something, all right? You gotta do something to get rid of the sugar in the cells of the muscle. The liver, on the other hand, it can dump back into the bloodstream for energy if it needs it. Both of those tanks, if they fill up, then it causes a problem. And the way they fill up is eating tons of carbs, which equals sugar in the bloodstream. So unless you use it and burn it for energy, then your tanks are going to eventually fill up. And once that fills up, then it backflows. That glucose turns into triglycerides, saturated fat, which is bad fat. All right, you gain weight. It causes a hormone imbalance with your insulin issue. It just goes haywire. All right, so that causes your brain not to accept messages from the leptin. So when that happens, you're swimming in leptin. You have abundance of leptin in your system. However, your brain is not able to say, it's too high on fat and sugar to be able to recognize leptin. It's like, oh, what's leptin? I'm high right now on fat, triglycerides, saturated fat, and glucose that I don't have time to mess with leptin. So you continue eating, and with your brain not getting the leptin that it needs because it's so full already on other junk, it thinks that you're skinny. So it triggers you to actually eat more and move less when actually you're already overweight, and fat. So the only way to get this kind of back in balance, and this is why the Whole30 is so important, you go through that detox time. It's 30 days, like I said, of that list of foods that I can provide you if you don't have it. It's completely pretty much carb free, no artificial anything, no sugar. It's just pretty much detoxing you from sugar because you already have an abundance of it in your tanks because they're full, obviously. If you're overweight, if you're suffering from diabetes, there's something that's too full. It's causing a backup, issue in your hormonal system, and eventually it's gonna lead to diabetes. It will, and I'm gonna tell you why. Okay, so back to how insulin works again, just a little recap. So whenever we eat carbs, which turns into sugar in the bloodstream, that causes your glucose, your sugar, blood sugar to rise, all right? That triggers the pancreas to release insulin. That's where our insulin is released from, is our pancreas. So the insulin then, once it's released, it communicates with our cells, the cells of our muscles and our liver, to take up the sugar that's in our bloodstream to lower the blood glucose. And then it's stored or it's used for energy. Okay, so once again, when those tanks are full, you have this backflow, okay? And then the sugar is no longer considered sugar because it's full in those tanks, so it backs up and converts into a fat, a bad fat, which you don't want, which raises your cholesterol, triglycerides, all that bad stuff. You don't want that. Okay, so then when you have that issue with the cells accepting or being too full to accept sugar and backing up and causing, the fat, this is what causes leptin resistance, which is what you don't want. This is what causes the brain to not recognize leptin or accept its messages to say, hey, I'm too fat, I shouldn't be eating, I should be moving more. It gets it backwards. And actually it's this domino effect downhill to more weight gain. So leptin resistance, which is pretty much just your brain not able to receive the leptin or accept the leptin's messages, also causes insulin resistance. So insulin resistance is something you don't want either. This is what causes eventually diabetes. So leptin resistance, then insulin resistance. And what happens with the insulin resistance is, okay, your cells, the ones I was talking about earlier with the muscles in the liver, and I'm trying to make this as easy and not complicated. That's why I'm just trying to think of what to say. I don't want to confuse anybody. And like I said, if I do, please reach out to me. I want to clarify this because it's important. It can literally save someone's life and transfer the fact that you might already be a diabetic. It can, kind of get you back out to not being a diabetic if you listen to what I'm saying or trying to educate you on. Okay, so back to the muscle and the liver. Once those cells are jam-packed already with sugar and they can't accept any more, your pancreas still is working and it's still recognizing that you're continuing to eat carbs, which turns into sugar. And it's doing its job. It's releasing insulin. And once it realizes that the glucose is still high because your cells are already jam-packed and they're like, no dude, I cannot accept any more sugar, they become insulin resistant. Those cells are putting up a wall and they say, I cannot accept any more. Well, at that time, the pancreas still works, so it sends out an even stronger message of insulin, which does eventually break through those cells. However, it damages the cells and it can kill the cells. So, which isn't good. You don't want any cell damage, all right? You have to eat good things like antioxidants and stuff like that to help repair damaged cells. And if you're eating junk, then you're not gonna be repairing anything. You're just doing more damage. So, once that happens, those cells will eventually close off again and be like, no, I can't accept anymore. I'm done. You've already damaged me once. I'm putting up a wall. Then the pancreas just keeps on. It keeps on working. Well, eventually, the hyperglycemia that is not getting taken care of because the cells aren't able to take in the sugar, that ends up backing into the pancreas, which damages the beta cells of the pancreas, which is what actually controls the insulin. And whenever you do that and you kill your beta cells, That's what causes diabetes. So it's not necessarily family history that's causing diabetes. It is you and your poor food choices. So insulin and leptin, they eventually work together in a good way or a bad way. Not only, okay, so another thing really quick. So you may have someone also that is thin, and they may have really poor eating habits. Don't think just because you're thin that you're healthy. I know a lot of people that are thin, they still have horrible lab values, terrible. These are the people that are kind of like an exception to the rule. They may not appear fat, but they have the worst fat of all, which is visceral fat. And visceral fat is fat that's around your organs. You don't want that, all right? So just because you may be thin, that does not mean that you're excluded in any of this. Your leptin can still get messed up and still not communicate with your brain depending on how you're eating. If you're eating a high carb diet, your tanks are probably both full, especially if you're living a sedentary lifestyle. Because if you're living a sedentary lifestyle, then your muscles they're gonna be full because they can't release sugar back into the bloodstream. They stay full until you burn them off with physical activity. And it usually needs high intensity. It's not just like, oh, walk into the mailbox. You got to get some blood flow to those muscles to get rid of that. So, leptin resistance is bad. Insulin resistance is bad, and it leads to diabetes. So, if you are diabetic, if you're pre-diabetic, if you have a family history of diabetes and you think that you're going to be a diabetic because of that, do the Whole30 and see what happens. There's plenty of testimonials that prove that it's helped people that do have diabetes. It's a lifestyle change. I'm not going to lie to you. You're going to have to change how you eat. You need to eat to fuel your body. Don't live to eat to live. Okay? And choose good foods. If you want the list, reach out to me. I'll get it to you. I have it. If you don't understand what I just relayed to you, please ask me. I'll clarify as best as I can. I know it's a lot, but it makes complete and utter sense to me. I'm not a diabetic, but I take care, and I've taken care of a lot of people who are, and I can tell by looking at people, hey, you're either a diabetic or you are on the verge of being a diabetic. Not only, does it cause a huge strain on your life by having to check your sugar or giving yourself insulin, blah, 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 but it causes so many other things, glaucoma, peripheral vascular disease, issues with your organs, kidneys, more risk for infections, especially like your skin. Just a slew of issues. People die all the time from complications of diabetes. Or, an actual diabetic issue, like DKA or something like that. So, it's super interesting to me. Like, I love this stuff. And I hope that you're not getting bored, and I really hope that the people that are following me, especially the diabetics, are watching this, because this part is the guts to diabetes and what is really the information that you need to understand that I'm sure you're not hearing at your doctor's office. I guarantee you're not. And if you are, you're not fully understanding what they're saying. So reach out to me if I've confused you thoroughly. If you're intrigued and you want to talk more, let me know. This stuff is super interesting to me. And like I said, this can save someone's life. Like I said, diabetes kills people all the time. If you can reverse your diabetes or prevent it, it's amazing, right? So reach out to me, keep watching, and I'm going to continue with the rest of this chapter, which we have glucagon and cortisol left. And I'm sure they're going to intertwine here somewhere, so it's going to get confusing, I'm sure. So bear with me, and please like and share, especially if you know someone that has diabetes, or if you do, it can't hurt, right? All right, y'all have a good one.